Ciao, benvenuti al tavolo italiano. Welcome to the 12th installment of our video series, Tips on Studying Italian. In this video we're going to discuss just that, when you need a little more help, a little more than what you're doing, studying or what you're using, when it just doesn't seem to be enough and you need a little help. And trust me, right now, I understand what it means to need a little help. Okay. By the way, those aren't props, and hopefully they won't be permanent. Okay, so thus far we've discussed things like attributes, expectations, practical how-tos, and most recently resources in the last video on my recommendations. But what do you do when all of that just doesn't seem to be enough? That's when a good teacher can really come in handy. Notice I didn't say teacher, but good teacher. And how do you know if he or she is a good teacher? And what are the benefits from having a good teacher, whether on a regular basis or just for periodic support? This is what we're going to discuss in this video, because eventually, sometime, somewhere, we all need a little help. And for the record, I am going to try to keep this video a tad bit shorter than what they've grown to be in the past. Mi dispiace, I'm sorry. By the way, I don't think that everybody should have a tutor that they employ on a regular basis. Because it just doesn't fit everybody's schedule, everybody's budget, or everybody's plan on learning. However, though, I do think that everybody should have somebody that they can bring on board or hire when they need and or want to. For some, that may be on a regular basis. For others, it may be periodic. And I have students that work it both ways. I have students that I meet with regularly. I've done this both in person and on Skype. And I have students that want to touch base once a month. Just kind of a check on where they're at. Now, while I don't claim to know everything about being a good teacher or a bad teacher, in fact, I am no authority at all on teaching. But I wanted to share my thoughts with you about what to look for in a good teacher. Thoughts that are derived from my experience. Okay? So a bad teacher, in my opinion, would then by default be the opposite. Instead of focusing on the bad characteristics, let's focus on the good. Okay? So, number one, you want somebody that is brutally honest. I honestly believe that. Do what you want, but somebody that'll let you do what you want, but will let you know what they think is the right way to go about it in a very professional manner. Now, I'm a strong believer, excuse me, that the customer is always right. However, meaning that the customer has the right to purchase or go in the direction they want to go, and the student in this case is the customer. I have no right to say you have to do it like this. That would be ludicrous. However, I would be remiss in my duties as a teacher if I didn't say, you know what, if that's what you want to do, that's fine, we'll do it, but I think you would be better served if we did this. And I personally believe that you would be far better off with a teacher that is honest above all. Okay? In a very professional manner, keep in mind. You don't want someone that's rude. By brutally honest, I don't mean you stink. That's not brutally honest. That's just discouraging, okay? You also want somebody who believes in you, who really believes in you. You know, and there are people who really, really believe in you, and there are people who will sound like they believe in you for personal gain. And I think everyone can really sense the difference, really, when someone genuinely believes in you. And you want that. because there'll be times when you'll need someone to encourage you, someone to cheer you on, someone to point out how far you've come so far. Okay? Next, you want someone who will be there for you. When it's, and I'm not talking about who will always make the appointments, always be there for the paid lesson. But for instance, for my students that I tutor online, or even if I tutor them personally, if they have a question during the week, they are free to contact me and say, Carlo or Chuck, I've been studying this, I just don't get this. Or what is the difference between these two verbs? Or just a simple something. I am there for them. I consider, especially for regular students, but even for periodic students, I do it just the same. But I even do it for friends, to be honest with you. But if you're going to have a tutor that you're going to use, I would like you to have someone that's available to you to answer a question. And not only when it's a for hire situation. I think you're going to want someone who's professional, someone that's punctual. Most of us lead busy lives. We have a lot of things to do. And if you're counting on starting a lesson at 5, your teacher should be there at 5. Now, I understand things come up. But I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about you don't want someone who is chronically late, who chronically cancels, things of that nature. So you want someone with a good reputation, someone who's punctual. Another, in my opinion, key feature to a really good teacher is someone that won't hesitate to point you somewhere else if you're better served there. Or someone who won't hesitate to point you to other learning resources to complement what they're doing with you. If you have a teacher that is more apt to not lead you anywhere else, but to only teach you maybe out of a book and doesn't pinpoint other areas where you can practice vocabulary and this and that and the other thing, then I'm not saying always, but you might have someone that's more interested in the dollar than in you. Okay? Okay then, what are some reasons and benefits for having a tutor that you can turn to, either periodically or on a regular basis? Well, I think this is, for me, and for other people like me, we need accountability and regularity. Sometimes it's good to have a tutor, if for no other reason than to keep you accountable to study on a regular basis, to keep you rolling along. Sometimes in the absence of that accountability, it's easier to lapse. Some people don't have that issue. I do. For me, my accountability was I started teaching before I really knew that much. Started teaching what I knew, which at the time was verbs in the present tense. And because I started teaching, I knew that there were going to be people showing up the following week that wanted to learn something new, that were around the same level I was at. So I was held accountable. I had to study in order to have something to give, something to share. And so that helped me with my accountability. Other people like to use a tutor for that very reason. It's one more thing to kind of hold your feet to the fire. These are my goals. This is the time that I can work into my schedule. But human nature, sometimes not so much. We just don't want to. But if we know that we're going to be meeting with someone on a weekly or a monthly basis, we have more of a tendency to kick it in gear. A little bit anyway. The other reason why is for direction. Learning Italian, and like learning any language, is really a massive endeavor. And if you're all on your own, and if you want to use, and you probably notice I've recommended that you use different things to help you with your Italian learning, right? I've recommended different books, different movies, different CDs, audio program, all kinds of things. Pointed out things online you can do. So you have all these different things, and if you're not going to just work in one program, which personally I think is a mistake, because just doing an individual single program Most of them out there, I think that you miss out on the overall picture. Like Rosetta Stone, I said it's a great program, but I just don't think it's enough in itself. So where do you start? How do you go? How do you navigate all this? Obviously, you can't absorb all this information simultaneously. So a good tutor can give you a path, give you a plan, a direction for you to work on, set goals for you, or help you set your own goals, I should say, and then direct you to the next step. Create a logical sequence of learning for you. And they should have pretty much a base plan in mind, but then they need to be flexible enough to fine tune that to your needs, because each of us is different. Advice. Now, this is true if you use a tutor periodically or on a regular basis. You know, specific resources. Carlo, I'm having some problems in this area. Do you have a specific book or resource you would recommend? Or do you have any notes that could help me with this? Or how did you go about this? Did you find this confusing at first? That kind of a thing. A good tutor should have life experience that they can share with you. Which, by the way, and I want to point out, there are many, many good teachers out there, and I don't claim to be the best. I think I do a good job, and I love my students, and my students know that, okay? And there are many Italians out there to teach you Italian. And I tell you what, there's a huge benefit to that, obviously. They know the language far better than I probably ever will. But there is also a benefit to an American teacher teaching Italian. And that is, for other Americans, I can relate to what you're probably going to go through better than someone who has Italian as a mother tongue. Just like an Italian who teaches English may not, or teaches American, we'll call it, so we don't get mixed up with the British, they may not know American English as well as we do, but when they're sharing with an Italian on how to learn English, they have a far better understanding of what Italians will be going through in learning English, what their difficulties will be, what possible landmines, for lack of a better word, that there are. They'll be able to relate that, and they'll be able to share those experiences. In the same way, an American teaching Italian can do that. But once again, there are obvious benefits to having an Italian teach you Italian too. Number one, they know the language better. Number two, you'll be hearing the actual accent. So if possible, I think it's actually good to have a mix of people in there. Okay, a check for what we think we understand. A tutor, or a good mentor could be used to give you a pop quiz, if you so desire. An exam, have you on different topics from time to time, just so you know that you really know, what you think you know. Oftentimes we think we know either far more or far less than what we really know. It's a great reality check. And just bottom line, help through times where we just can't quite get it. Someone to sit there and work with us on a lesson and help us through. There are some times when we just need someone there to give us a hand and help with the answers. And finally, and I actually already touched on this, I went out of order, mi dispiace, I'm sorry, is just relating through their learning experience. If, se posso imparare italiano, tu puoi, per certo. And all I said, if I can learn Italian, you can, for sure. Trust me, in the beginning it was a struggle for me, but I stuck with it, and I'm really glad I did. Perché italiano è una lingua molto molto bella e mi piace molto. E adesso ho alcuni amici dappertutto in Italia. Okay, I love Italian, it's a beautiful language. Translate that, see if you can figure out what I said. Okay, so I hope that this explains what I meant by when I said when you need a little more. Just a little something extra than everything else that you're already doing. By the way, so where do you find a tutor? Well, there's a lot of places you can find a tutor. And I would be doing myself an injustice if I didn't tell you that yes, I tutor, both personally and online. If you happen to live in the greater Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas area, and you want a personal tutor, if you like my videos, maybe we're both in luck. You can contact me at my email address, which is iltavoloitaliano@gmail.com. I also tutor via Skype. I actually have been doing much more of that in the my recent history than I have been teaching in person. So if you would be interested in Skype lessons, feel free to contact me at iltavoloitaliano@gmail.com. But there's a lot of other sources for tutors too. And some good places that you can find tutors are by contacting your local college or university. Oftentimes they'll have teachers that teach on the side, or maybe an advanced student that can tutor you as well. You could put an ad on Craigslist that you're looking for an Italian tutor. If you go back to the video we did on trying to place yourself in an environment for learning Italian, and you found a meetup group, there might be a tutor available for you there. There are also tutors available online. I don't personally know the websites where you can find them, but I'm sure that if you Googled it, you would find them pretty readily. The only thing I encourage you to do is I would encourage you to use caution on who you choose, okay? So a couple things I would look for is I would look to see if any of them offer a free or pay after the first session, okay? To give you a chance to evaluate them. For instance, when I tutor, I never charge up front for the first lesson. I want people to go through that lesson with me first so they can get a feel for where I'm at, if they think it's a good fit, and if they feel like they want to move forward. If they do, then I do ask them to pay for that first lesson. But if they don't, no hard feelings. They owe me nothing and they can move on. So that's actually a great way to feel your teacher out. And, so don't be afraid to ask if you have the opportunity to do that. I mean, especially if it's someone you don't know at all, especially somebody online, I would highly recommend doing that. And just be careful with your funds and how that's all handled. Unfortunately, in this day and age, that's something that we all need to do. Okay, so next, incorporating the study lifestyle into your busy life. I am very, very excited about that video, and I hope to have it out before too long. I apologize for the lag before this video. As you saw, I'm on crutches, tore a tendon. Life has been a little difficult lately, but not too difficult for me, you see. Okay, then dare to dream after that, and planning your adventure. Probably not what you're going to expect. And since then, I've decided I might add one more video after that. So thank you for taking the time to watch this video. I hope you find it helpful. I hope that this entire series has been helpful to you, and that you'll decide to continue watching us. Remember, you can find much more about learning Italian at iltavoloitaliano.com. You can catch all of our videos on YouTube. You can subscribe by clicking on the link to subscribe to our videos, and you'll be notified when new ones come out. Or you can find us on Facebook. So, and don't forget, if you're interested in tutoring, it's iltavoloitaliano@gmail.com. So, thank you very much. Grazie mille. Buona fortuna con il tuo italiano. E ciao.